Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, a podcast about leaving self-doubt in the dust, punching fear in the face, and taking bold action toward your biggest dreams. I'm Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. Today, I am so excited to introduce to you a man that I had the pleasure first of coaching back when he was learning to be a copywriter. Way back when I knew Csaba. And since then, he's gone on to be featured in multiple publications with all the work that he's doing. So welcome to the show, everyone. Csaba Borzasi.
Hi, Angie. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. It's amazing.
I'm so happy to have you here. And I've seen you come so far since you first started out. Like, was I your first contact when you were talking about joining that coaching program?
Actually, yes. So I've joined Copy Chief, which is a community for copywriters, like 3 months before joining that coaching program. And, I saw it, I knew about it. I considered joining it a few times before, but I was always on the fence. And then I reached out to you, I think, because I saw you on a webinar. You were very helpful. I reached out to you and you just shot a 20-minute video for me, just like that, answering all my objections preemptively even. And I was like, wow, okay, so if I have coaches like this in the program, then that's the place to be.
Yeah, that sounds like me rambling for 20 minutes. So we were talking a little bit before this call about imposter syndrome, which I think is almost a recurring theme on this podcast, but I can never get enough talking about it. I know when I was growing up with my polite Southern family, I often heard, "You're too loud. You swear too much. Stop doing all those things. Oh my God, why did you get that tattoo?" And it felt like no matter what I did, if I was being true to myself, I was wrong. But if I was following someone else's advice, it didn't feel right. So tell me a little bit about your experience. Was it similar to that?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Especially my mother always taught me these things. Be careful what others say, like always try to be polite, preemptively salute people on the street. I grew up actually, I'm from Romania. I live in Hungary, but I'm an ethnic Hungarian who was born in Transylvania, which is a part of Romania now. But I promise I'm not a vampire.
How did I not know you were from Transylvania? That's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it's a complicated. There's a complicated historical thing between Romanians and Hungarians. But anyway, as an ethnic Hungarian, I was a minority, and Romania and Hungary, they're both in Eastern Europe, so they're both post-communist countries as well. So in addition to especially my mother, but my father as well, being very mindful of others, especially in social situations, there was the extra pressure of my parents growing up in basically a dictatorship where if you expressed individuality, if you expressed strong emotions, if you even dared to talk about polarizing subjects in public or even at home, you were severely penalized by it. And wow. This got ingrained into the collective unconscious of that society. It still is, even to this day. And these types of traumas, they last a long time. They last decades. And it's very visible even to this day, not just with me, with my friends and other people as well. Whenever people from my original, culture, they try to do something daring, like become a direct response copywriter as a freelancer on the US market, for example. This is like, so are you scamming people for money, or are you doing something on the internet? What's up with that? So yeah, I can definitely relate to imposter syndrome because of that. And I had a lot of baggage before doing this actually. But I kind of learned to kind of cope with it and discover that it's with you. It's going to stay with you forever. It doesn't go away. I'm in a famous copywriter's coaching program called David Deutsch. And even he struggles with imposter syndrome. And he's this super big shot guy in the world of copywriting.
No, I've said that a bunch of times, and you have so many great things that I kind of want to unpack there. So first of all, hearing that it's generational trauma that led to this idea of you've got to keep your real self. I think that was a great thing for me to hear. I think that's a great thing for the audience to hear too, particularly us Americans that kind of take for granted this idea of like, I can say and do whatever I want and you don't have to like it. Wow. Like to take that freedom for granted and just to kind of like throw it in people's face that I can say whatever I want. I don't take that lightly. And I think that that's kind of important to note. And another great point that you made was about this idea that they thought you were scamming people because you're going to work online. You're not going to work at a traditional job. You're not taking on a more traditional role. I had a similar experience with a former partner of mine that right before I took coaching with Kevin, that same program that you joined, he told me, you can't do that because you are being taken in by internet scam artists. Like they're just going to sell you a program on how to make money online. They're going to take all your cash and then you're going to be broke and complaining to me. And I still can't rationally describe it to this day, but like I rebelled against everything he said. This is not an internet scammer. Everything about him tells me that this is someone that I can trust, that cares about me and my development. So I took out a secret credit card and I invested in the program without telling my partner at the time. Shocker, that's not the foundation for a strong relationship. And ultimately we broke up. But that I think I'm better for that because the investment that I made in my future paid off in spades. It led to me becoming eventually a coach for that very same program, meeting wonderful people like you. I honestly don't even know if this podcast would exist if I hadn't been through a program like that. All courtesy of internet hucksters taking us for a ride, right?
Yeah. I think the funny thing is that you actually shared this story with me in that 20-minute video that you did when I reached out regarding that coaching. And I said, wow, Angie, I mean, this person is so vulnerable, willing to be so vulnerable. How can she be a hustler or a huckster or something? Like it would have to be really, really, really like psychopathic levels of scam artists, but it just doesn't seem like that. So.
Well, and that brings me to an interesting point too, because, we're both we're sales oriented writers, right? Yes. Copywriters. And that's just broader context for those of you that are listening that are new to hearing me rant about copywriting. But I think one of the things that small business owners really struggle with the idea of selling because they have that, slick, high pressure, used car salesman, the internet huckster idea in their mind, and they can't transform themselves into that. So they think, okay, I can't sell. And okay, I get that. You don't want to be that inauthentic, high pressure person, but if you can't sell, you don't have a business. So you've got to find a way to sell and believe that you are delivering true value. And that's what I loved about the approach when I first bought into that coaching program, which was, we had a discussion. I'm so glad you brought up this story too. I was telling Kevin, who is the leader of this program, I really wanted, this feels like the right time. It feels like my moment. I really want to do this. I'm struggling with the payment, which was 4 figures and it was not insignificant. And he told me, look, Angie, I get it. You've got a partner, you've got a mortgage, you've got bills to pay, and I don't want to put any of that in danger. This program will be here when you are ready for it. Don't chance missing a mortgage payment. Don't take food out of your mouth. Don't spend money on something. I will be here when you're ready for it. And that was kind of like the, he gives a damn about me moment that I was like, nope, I'm buying this. I'm totally in.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Especially because both of my parents are engineers, basically. So, and my father is the type of person who basically all throughout his life, he did a bunch of work for everybody else, and he was the ant type of person who does the work, who creates the value, and then sure, he gets rewarded in some way, shape, or form, but like a bunch of others profit off of him. But he had zero entrepreneurial skills or even like desire to actually do it. The same for my mother. So I actually came from a super anti-entrepreneurial background and an anti-selling background. So for my parents, or even the culture that I came from, like selling, there's this zeitgeist that whoever gets rich has to be a scam artist, because that's the only way to really get rich. Like, because that's what you learned from a post-communist country. It's that like people like in the government or something steal a bunch with the pretext that we're giving away for people, but it's just a big scam. And this is what they got ingrained into their minds. So I had to learn and basically deconstruct these false myths, and then reconstruct a new reality for myself. And apparently that's also like the basis for all persuasion. So that's how like sales pages work, right? But I guess my point with this is that, you know, I really had to learn all this stuff from books, courses, blogs, relentlessly learning about that stuff. Some people, you know, are born salesmen. I was definitely not one. I had to learn it. And even to this day, sometimes I just don't feel it. I just, especially like in my day-to-day life, when I interact with people, I don't really use these instinctively. I have to, when I'm in my copywriting mode, I use them because I know that now I have to use these. But I have a different persona in most cases, and it's like sometimes a big difference. And it creates this weird little dichotomy in my mind. It's weird, but yeah.
No, I think that's amazing. And I loved one thing that you said that I want to unpack a little bit. And that was about, you know, having to learn and having to teach yourself, having to go down this path that was so counterintuitive to even like the main culture that everybody grew up. It's not even that like you're in this small pocket of entrepreneurship, but literally no one else around you can kind of see this vision. And I think that's important to highlight because that happens to, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs as they're growing and stretching out of their comfort zones, right? Figuring out how to start this business, what they could even offer. So many people around them, you know, United States, Hungary, I feel like there's a lot of overlap here too, that like, this is the way that things work. This is the path that you follow. This is the way that you behave in order to be seen as a professional. And if you step out of this, we're going to brand you as that huckster, that scam artist, like you're taking advantage of people. What was it like to just, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. What was it like to follow your gut against the tide like that and just, you know, no, something about this feels really right. I need to follow this.
Yeah, great question. Well, I was put into a situation where I had to make it work. So when I moved to Hungary from Romania after completing my studies, I started working for IBM as a sales support specialist. So basically a boring corporate back office job. And I kind of was okay with it, but it was boring for me. And it really bugged me that even if I was, let's say, smarter than others, tried to create systems or something, there was no plus upside. They just gave me more work. I said, okay, that doesn't sound too good. So then I got persuaded into joining like a wealth management company by a friend of a friend. And this was supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread, but it turned out to be this super scammy company in which I had to cold call 50 people per day under a false name in English in Hungary as a false persona to get them to basically invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, in like, these were super high net worth individuals like CEOs and companies and stuff like that. And basically I was doing lead generation for my bosses and only getting a share of the profits. So this was the type of job, fortunately, hopefully the only one in my life, in which I started working there. And after a week, I started having constant diarrhea when I went into work. And I after a week, I started plotting my escape. And I needed 6 months to actually manufacture like a plan because I didn't have savings at the time, nothing. And as with most of these jobs, you know, it was a very, very long sales cycle in which I generated a lead and then my bosses closed them and then I got the money. It took 4 months or something. And then at the end, you know, they preemptively fired me in order to not pay my commissions, a lot of my commissions. But when I managed to like build up a few months worth of savings, then I finally basically was laid off, but I wanted to quit anyway. And then I started working. Some of my friends here in Budapest, they were working as freelance copywriters already. I was involved in like a group of friends who were all pickup artists, but then they all transitioned into entrepreneurs. There's an interesting little connection here. And I basically said, okay, so I'm going to register on Upwork. I'm just going to like learn anything I can about this for 2 weeks. I give myself 2 weeks, and then I got to make it work in the first month. So in a way that I have basically 1.5 months of savings. That's it. And one of my first client actually was a sex shop. So I really learned the concept of creating desire building bullets when writing fascinations for like penis extenders and stuff like that.
That's so great. We have so much more overlap than you might even realize. I was just writing down notes while you were talking, because it's the same thing with my old day job, when it got to the point that I was so stressed out that and there was like a disconnect between my body and my brain. I don't know if that happened to you too, but like my brain is rationalizing, I need the money, I need to go into work. And my body is like violently like,
yes,
I can't sleep. I'm having knots in my shoulders. My stomach is constantly upset. Like my body is screaming at me, stop going to this job. It's stressing you out. But my brain was like, we need money. And I did the same thing. It took me 6 months between when I first announced my intention to my group of peers that I'm going to leave this job. It took me 6 months to get out the door. Same thing, because I didn't have savings and I was worried. So I'm suddenly like working the day job, trying to keep things floating there, taking on side gigs, trying to build up my little pot of money, only to see you had a month and a half to make it. I had about 4 months worth of savings, and I did really well my first month out. I managed to build 5 figures in like 14 days. It was insane. And then I stopped prospecting. And then when I finally started looking for clients again, after I burned myself out that first month working around the clock, I started to run out of money really fast, because my mortgage payments were super expensive in the San Francisco area. And then I wound up taking a temporary gig at my old job, the one that had caused me so much stress. I got laid off. I got fucking fired from a job I didn't even have, a job I didn't even want, a job that I had left.
Crazy.
4 months after I had walked out the door. It was insane. But it's really kind of funny how you get into that cycle of like the money above everything, even like your health, your well-being. It can really stress you out. And so that's why I'm a big proponent. You've heard me rant about this in our coaching programs too. If you don't have an FU fund, listening to the podcast, I'm going to rant about this until somebody forcibly shuts me up. But you need to save money, even if it's $1 at a time. Start saving now and make that a habit. And then that way, if you are having violent diarrhea on your job and you know that you need to walk away, you have the freedom to walk away and kind of get your head on straight and try again.
Yeah. I think at this point, I definitely learned this lesson. Obviously, along the way of me becoming a freelance copywriter, I had a bunch of nightmare clients from hell, is that I call them. And a few times, I got scammed and I got exploited. And I had a few other clients as well, which were not too pleasant to work with, let's say. But at this point, I would rather just not take the money. I have the FU fund. I have some savings. I would rather not work for a year or something than to work for these, because I'm just creating content more. I'm focused on the long-term strategy. And it just, I think it was John Carlton, another famous copywriter, who is like the mentor of our mentor, Kevin Rogers, who said that, you got to be very careful of breakdown and with like submitting to these nightmare clients, because it can really mess you up. And it does more damage than the money that you take for it, because it might fuck. Can I use the F word?
You can say whatever the hell you want to on this podcast. My fucking podcast.
Hell yeah. So I'm just going to let it go.
Yes.
The things that I've been conditioned to act politely in the society, but it fucks you up like crazy. And, it might fuck up your confidence. It might give you even more imposter syndrome. It might validate some of your pre-existing false beliefs that you might have regarding yourself. So, and I had this a few times. I said, now, I'm more experienced. I'm just going to take this client, even though there are a few red flags. It's just going to be a quick work. They just need something simple from me. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. It's like, hey, it should only take you like 2 days.
Don't tell me how to do my job, bro.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how much time it takes. Thank you very much.
So I'm way more straight with them nowadays.
I'm so glad you brought that up too, because, okay, guys, if you're new to business, or maybe if you're in that intro phase, you've started your business and you're dealing with the nightmare clients, it's hard to see a light at the end of this particular tunnel. But listen to me, listen to Csaba. If you stand your ground and you refuse to be treated a certain way, you'd be amazed how quickly those shitty clients fall off your radar and newer, better, more interesting projects come along with people that actually respect your expertise and your talent. And then, like we said, if you have that money saved up to float you in between finding those clients, then you don't have to take on shitty gigs. And like the thing that you said that, you know, we're going to credit Carlton for that, because that's something that I learned early on too, is like, you're not just spending your time with this client. Like you said, you're spending mental energy. There's emotion that goes into that, because if you're a creator, a little piece of you goes into all the work. So there's like the rejection of them telling you that your work is not good enough. I had that happen to me once with a nightmare client, where the guy said, I'm not paying you the second half of the, like, he'd paid me a deposit. I'm not paying you the second half of your fee because this copy wasn't good enough. It was disappointing. It sucked. That copy sucked so much, he had it published on his website within 24 hours of refusing to pay me. Wow, did that copy suck if he decided to use it? And so, like, the reason I'm going into this kind of circular rant here is, if you're in this stage, it happens to all of us. Trust me when I say that there is a way out. I've been burned. Csaba's been burned. Every freelancer under the sun, unless they have remarkable luck, like the kind of, they need to go get lotto tickets right now luck. We've all been burned. We've all survived and come out the other side and built better businesses for it. It's part of the process to fall on your face, to take bad clients, to ignore red flags in favor of the money. It's all part of the process. Whew.
Absolutely. That's very, very important to communicate this to your audience, because like some people believe that, you know, there are these gurus, these achieved freelancers or entrepreneurs who just like made it and it was a miracle, but it doesn't work like that. And that's why I'm so glad that you started this podcast, Angie, this permission to kick ass, because somebody has to communicate this stuff, because most sales materials and marketing materials out there, they only communicate like the upside and how, you know, I break down a lot of financial promotions nowadays, analyze them, and they're so like, okay, in some sense, they're very persuasive, but on the other sense, they're super biased as well, because they say, yes, if you invested $100 20 years ago in Amazon, you could have made this much money. And it's like, sure, I get it, but there are so many other predictions that they made, which totally fell on their face. And the same thing with freelancing as well.
Yeah, I love that. My favorite illustration in all of these like lifestyle sales pages to pick apart is the work on your laptop from the beach. Like, first of all, if I'm at the beach, I don't want to be working. Screw that. Second of all, sand in my laptop. What the hell? Like, no, this is not a good idea. Third of all, sand in other places that are unmentionable. We'll not talk about that. How about no, I'd like to be sitting in a chair on the beach with a cocktail, listening to the waves, with no laptop anywhere in sight ever at all, because beach time is relaxation time, not work time. Whew.
Yeah. If you want to be an entrepreneur, first of all, don't hope for like encouragement for people, because it's not a place where you're going to get it like organically.
Not unless you're surrounded by other entrepreneurs, because other entrepreneurs who have had some success will encourage you. But the majority of people that are like employees or failed entrepreneurs will be like, no, you can't have that dream. You're fooling yourself, and like, screw those people. With all the love that you have, if you love them and their loved ones, love them from a distance. Don't talk to them about your dreams.
That's true. But still, you got to have thick skin. And the other thing is that if you want to be an entrepreneur or like a freelancer who does well, get used to like spending 8 hours a day or even more, many cases, in front of your monitor in a dark room in your dungeon, because that's how the entrepreneurial life, the hustle lifestyle really is.
I know, I'm laughing at this because, okay, so as we're recording this, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. This is I'm starting to lose track already. This is like the third or fourth stop on my little domestic digital nomad trip. And everybody is bugging me for more pictures of adventures. And I'm like, I'm at the point where I think I'm sarcastically going to take a bunch of photos of like, here's a selfie of me at my laptop.
Yeah.
Here's a selfie of me writing notes in my notepad and just like, look, these are all the adventures that I'm having because I'm still working while I'm on the road. But the beauty of the way that I've structured this is if I want to work from like 7 to noon and then take the afternoon off, great. And then maybe I come back and do an hour or two of work at night, because this is the way that I've built my schedule, to not have to be at a computer at a certain time other than things that I really want to do, like record a podcast.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also, as you get like further down the journey, for me at least, it became kind of like a role-playing game. So at the moment, for example, I'm doing this proven sales letter breakdown challenge for 100 days. I'm on day 76 at the moment.
Holy
and
shit.
It takes away a lot of, like, I'm doing it daily YouTube uploads, everything. It's like a 3-hour process every single day in many cases. And I'm actually sacrificing short-term client work for this, for the long term. But for me, one of the great motivating things is that one of the main reasons I'm doing this is because I want to get really good at copy. And I love to learn. Even before I did all this, I always was the guy who was like, let's go out to the party. Sure. But I went there after 2 hours. This is boring. I would rather go read something or like talk to someone one-on-one or something like that. So I guess the thing I want to communicate with this is that you got to find something else, some internal motivation that keeps moving you forward, because it's a rough road, but it has its ups and downs, definitely. But it has a lot of beauty. And for me personally, it's autonomy, and it's like I get paid to learn, basically, which is awesome.
I think that's great. And I wanted to call attention to a distinction that I want to make too, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs get caught in the learning trap. You are learning by doing. And that is the important next level step. Like you are taking your learnings, you are spending 3 hours a day, making that into a video, putting it up somewhere, risking judgments, risking feedback, right? And the great thing about what we do as writers is that you're going to get some shitty feedback. I mean, internet trolls are everywhere in every industry. So like, surprise, if you're going to be in business, you're going to have haters. It's a sign that you're doing better than you think.
So far, I haven't gotten any shitty feedback, seriously. So
nice.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know how or why, but maybe people are very like, they're like, oh, poor guy, let's not hurt him. But
I haven't gotten shitty feedback, but I have gotten porn spam on my YouTube videos.
Oh yeah, so I get all the time, but those are bots, so it doesn't matter. Porn
spam bots love me. Haters apparently don't. Maybe it's because I have a reputation for shutting down haters fairly quickly. That's one of my favorite pastimes, as an aside. So if you're a hater and you're listening to this podcast, I am very skilled at making you look like a moron in a very polite, very above reproach way. So bring it on, haters, says me. You will just prove to me that I am going in the right direction. But that, not getting stuck in that, I just want to learn. I just want to learn all I can, and then I'll take action trap. Oh, yeah. Like the thing that I think is interesting, we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, is that day 76, you said that you're doing this with no, expectation of I'm going to sell this later. Just like, I want to do this purely to get better. And you said that you've been featured by certain places, right? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, this all comes back to the original coaching program that we started talking about. It's called Real Free Life. And it's very relevant because it tries to give you let's say a freer life. But inside there, we have a concept that you should create authority content, and if you don't really have the audience to put this out to, just document your process of you learning something. And originally I wanted to specialize on YouTube ads, but I still had I had a great little brand image for it and everything, but I was missing an important part, which was that I didn't really have the connections necessarily or the clients necessary to test a bunch of those things. Because for these two, or in order to test these, you need to spend a lot of money on ads. And I still felt like a fraud, but I said to myself, I enjoy copy the most. I have a bachelor in psychology. My girlfriend, soon to be wife, is a therapist as well. Thank you so much. We're actually getting married in 3 weeks.
Holy crap.
Just bought a house together. Thank you so much. Yeah, things are moving fast. So the thing is, I wanted to learn these things. And I said, what can I do to also create authority content while I'm significantly improving my skills? Because I had the phase for years when I was consuming content like madman. Like if you would see my notes, I have thousands of pages of notes from various books and courses and everything. I went to my friends. I tried to borrow stuff from them as well when I didn't have the money. And it's like, I learned so much, but the problem is that I couldn't really test it. And the first 1.5 years or 2 years when I was working with clients, they were shitty clients and they didn't implement my copy, which is just as bad as like them not paying you, because you don't gain the confidence to accompany your learning, your new knowledge. But now I'm implementing. And there was another thing from our mentor, Kevin Rogers, that said that, you become an expert you don't just become an expert suddenly, but eventually as you're creating content, people start just looking at you like an expert because you are there day by day. You are showing up, and half of the work or even more in this business is just showing up. And I can't tell you how many comments I've gotten from people because they were inspired by my challenge that I'm doing this every day. And they also started their own daily challenges. And I even gotten comments from like some of the A-list copywriters that I featured in these videos. They were like, hey, I watched your video, and we're talking about 40, 50-minute videos and sometimes. And I watched your video. It's awesome, basically, what you're doing. And like, please let me know if I can help you with anything or something like that. So
that's amazing. And especially since you could have used that as a potential like fear block or anxiety. Like, I can't criticize these people. I can't provide feedback or break down what they're saying because they might come on and be the haters and be like, no, you totally misunderstood everything I was going for. You suck. Like, that fear is real. But
I did have it.
You did?
Yes, absolutely. Like, for example, I broke down one of Kim Krasi-Schwam's promotions. You featured her on the podcast not long ago. And I was thinking of sending it to her, mentioning that, hey, I broke it down. And I definitely had emotions before I sent the email. I said, what if, it's actually like, I messed this up, and it's like, I totally like messed this whole analysis up. And it's like, I'm talking about two basic things or something, but I sent it to her. And within a day she replied, and she was like, wow, like you actually got most of the things right. And you actually point out things that I even didn't consider when I wrote the promotion. So that's that. And that serves obviously as validation that, again, banishes imposter syndrome. But even if this didn't happen, I made a conscious decision when starting this, that I'm doing this for myself, and eventually people will find it. But because, good content attracts people, but I don't really have expectations for this. I haven't gotten any clients from this yet, or many people approach me since then, but I haven't gotten a done deal because of this yet or something. But it's not the reason why I'm doing it. It's that, I noticed that there's a lot of younger wannabe copywriters as well. And I'm learning with this. They're going to learn from this. I'm putting everything on YouTube for free. I think it's definitely democratizing this type of knowledge. And then eventually, sure, I will create a lead magnet or a freebie, a conclusion, or various types of products around this. I don't know yet exactly, but for now, I just want to finish it.
Well, and I think that's the important thing. I just got done with some life coaching, actually. And I love Kim because she's so sassy to the point where if you don't know her, and she's very good about drawing boundaries. In fact, that's exactly what our podcast was about, setting boundaries, having uncomfortable conversations. If you don't know her, then yeah, it would definitely be intimidating to be like, hey, I broke down one of your sales letters, and then have her come back to you and be like, here's what you got right. Here's what I didn't even think about. Here's where you could have done better. But the things that I think are really important in what you're telling me about your story is, one, being an expert is not being the guru on top of a mountain. It's being I can't even remember because I've heard this so often, but it's being 10% ahead of the people that you're trying to help. And I like to talk about it in terms of guru mountain, because who's in a better place to help you as you're on this trail, right? You're trying to climb a mountain. The person standing at the top that can't even freaking see you because you're so far down, or the person that's a few steps ahead of you that says, hey, there's a little gorge there you might trip and fall into. Grab my hand. I'm going to help you across. You're going to reach out for the hand that's closest to you because they can actually help you where you're at right now. and you might not be ready for the guru at the top. You might not see the guru at the top. Eventually you might get there, or you might find a nice comfy little cave to set up shop. And like, not everybody needs to get to the top of the mountain. The people at the top of the mountain have more than enough business to go around for everybody else on the mountain. We're just going to go all in on this mountain analogy. And people will pick different, or they'll leave the mountain entirely and go find another mountain when they discover that this one is too hard. Maybe they need a smaller mountain, you know?
Yeah.
So like, you can't assume that everybody has to aim for the top. Like, I gave up searching for the number one position a long time ago because one, I'm lazy. I worked in Silicon Valley. I did the hustle and grind until you drop. I have burned out. It is not fun. So no, I don't want to kill myself to be number one, because as soon as I make number one, somebody's going to come along and try and knock me off my pedestal so they can be number one. So I am very comfortable being in like the top 5 or 10%, because that's doing pretty damn well. And then the other thing that I think is really great here that could short circuit a lot of people that are feeling a fear blockage from putting themselves out there. Like that authority content that we talked about is super important, especially in the beginning when no one is saying a damn thing. And it feels like, why am I even bothering? No one cares. No one's reading this. But think about how often you get an email or you see a video and you think, oh man, that was great. And then you go on about your day. And you don't bother to reach out to the content creator and say, hey, man, I needed that today. So that's happening around you all the time when you're putting content out there, that somebody is seeing this, they're reading it, they're going, oh, man, that's great. And then they're going off and living their own life. And it has nothing to do with you. They still think you're great and they're still following you. Publishing without expectation of people writing in and saying, this is great, this is useful, please continue. Doing it so that you can learn just by the process of doing and putting yourself out there, and risking somebody coming back and saying, actually, maybe if you think about it this way, man, I think you're doing everything right. That was basically a big long rant to say that.
I like Angie rants. Everybody loves Angie rants. But yeah, I appreciate it. I think that in my case, I had to like learn how to do this that you said as a coping mechanism, because in my case, really everybody was saying that, hey, you should get a real job. And, in most cases, they say that at least your mom is going to read your emails, right? But in my case, my parents don't speak English. So even them couldn't, like, they still cannot read a single one of my video, they cannot watch my videos or understand it. They would love to. And there are so many relatives who like my stuff without even understanding what it does. So it was actually very hard to, it hurt emotionally a lot, to be honest, because I really felt like a lone wolf doing this against all odds. But fortunately for me, I am a lone wolf type of character, which was a double-edged sword, because in the beginning, I thought that, okay, I just consume every information that I can, and then I'm going to be like world class. But it doesn't work like that. And now I'm spending like way, way, way more time on, networking, building relationships, learning by just speaking with people. Because I feel at this point, and it took me a long time to really internalize this, but I think at this point, I really feel like, okay, Csaba, you know enough. It's fine, okay? Because this goes back to imposter syndrome, is that I have to constantly be at 120% awareness level. I have to know the answer to every single question preemptively whenever I enter something. And before calls, I would spend like an hour or something prepping for it and everything. And now I'm just like, let's do it and let's see what happens. I'm confident. And I think it was Ramit Sethi, another guru influencer in the financial and self-development niche, who said that trust your legs. Okay. It's hard to do sometimes, but I think I'm doing way better in this.
And that's a great analogy too, because most of us, who are fortunate enough to be able to walk, when we learn to walk, you probably can't even remember all the times that you fell down. Might have hit your head on something, might have screamed your head off. That's so far in the past that it's not even a fear. It's a total non-issue. And that's what most of these things will wind up being too. It's really, really scary while you're doing it, while you're going through it, while you're falling down and getting hurt. But then later on, you're going to be like, oh, why did I wait to do that so long? So you said some really interesting things that I want to circle back to. One is this idea of, and I got stuck in this trap too, this idea that I have to learn all I can and prove myself first before someone will give me an opportunity. So like, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to study independently and I'm going to become a world-class expert. And then I'm going to get in the room and build these relationships. And people are going to be like, oh my God, you're amazing. Where have you been all my life? It actually can happen together. And, that ties into the second idea that I heard you say. You touched on this idea of knowing all the answers, feeling like you're not an expert if you don't know all the answers. And I hear that a lot with my coaching students. And I have a rebuttal for that. It's twofold. One, you can't browbeat someone into taking your advice. They will resist you at every single turn. You will be known as someone that is not fun to work with. They will find somebody else to spend their money with, most likely. If you're like, I'm right, you're wrong, fuck you, listen to me. It's not really the way it works in business. You got to like,
painfully true.
Yeah, you really got to like working with the people that you're liking with and trust their expertise. And if you feel like, I'm putting myself in the client's shoe. If I feel like somebody that I hired is not listening to my concerns and they're just trying to force me into a solution without trying to work with me, then, I'm out. I'm tuned out. I don't want to hear this. And so there's a couple of additional points in that. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be able to figure them out. And if you are going back to your network, if you've been building that network versus studying alone by yourself in a corner, probably they can answer your question in like 5 minutes flat and get you unstuck. And it's as easy. I trust me. No client has ever told me that I'm a fraud when I've said, that's a great question. Actually, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Let me go do some digging. I will get back to you on that. And then that establishes my authority in a couple of ways. I'm a human being. I'm totally approachable. I don't know, but I'm going to find it out. And then when I circle back, when I said I would, right? The pro code, going back to Carlton, I show up when I said I would, having done what I said I would do. So, I told them, I don't know the answer. I'm going to go find it. I will report back. When I report back with all that information, they're like, you notice all these subtle cues here that I'm giving, that I'm a total pro, that you can trust me. Like, I'm going to find the answers. I'm going to figure this shit out. I'm going to come back and I'm going to be here when I said I did. I don't let the not knowing stop me from doing things. And I've never been punished by, we'll say a reputable client, somebody that actually knows business.
Very important.
There are new people to business that you might land as initial clients when you're still exploring that, they don't know what they don't know, and you won't know what you won't know until you do. That might be like, oh, you're not an expert that knows everything. I can't work with you. You'd be like, all right, best of luck. Here's where I hear that you can find some great people to help you with that problem. Just like send them on their way. Leave them better than you found them. Even if they annoyed the fuck out of you, always treat people with respect. Don't burn bridges, because you never know when somebody's going to go out and like learn a hard lesson and then come back to you and be like, oh, Angie. So I realized the last time that I went to work with you, I totally approached all of this wrong. Let's talk about how we could do this better. It happens all the time in business. And that's why that's the long way to circle back to what you said about building these relationships. That is super, super important. Start reaching out to people, even if you don't feel like you deserve to be in the same room with them, because being in the same room with the people that you want to be like is naturally going to force you to step up your game and try to be like them, learn from them, do better than you probably could, again, on your own, in a corner, in a room by yourself studying.
Yeah, it's so weird if you think about it. Like, it makes sense logically, and looking back, it totally is. It's like, yeah, duh. But when you're there and you feel like you're struggling, you feel like, who am I to approach these demigod characters? But then you I don't know, you create authority content, or like you start engaging with them, or you get in the same room with them in like the same programs, or maybe even live events eventually. Suddenly it just clicks that they're people too, and they're easy to like. It's like, insecure guys have trouble approaching attractive girls when they're younger. And it's like, they feel like, who am I to go to that? And I used to feel that a lot, actually. But at the end of the day, it's just like, just be normal, be vulnerable.
Be a person, connect with another human being,
Yes.
regardless of whether you perceive their station to be above yours or not. I tell you, like, I didn't really understand that point that you just made until I was on the other side of it. And that happened at the first Copy Chief Live event.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And I had been working in the backgrounds, but, kind of quietly, I was publishing and I was growing my authority and people kind of knew who I was by then. So then I'm on stage at this event and Kevin had this rock show with a bunch of us playing together and I sang. And I was so nervous, first of all, about performing in front of colleagues. I've performed in front of hundreds of strangers, thousands of strangers, but for some reason, the colleagues was psyching me out a little bit. I got drunk. I left it all on the stage and had a blast. And when I walked off the stage, I got freaking mobbed. And I was so overwhelmed by, oh my God, I just can't handle this amount of attention right now. And I can't process everything. And after that, obviously when I sobered up, it just kind of clicked that that's what these famous people get all the time when they go out somewhere. Somebody that's really respected, really well known in the industry just gets people following them around oh my God, you're awesome. You changed my life. And it's it's awkward and uncomfortable. But if you go up to them and you just have a conversation like a person, just play it normal. Don't have any expectation out of this. Don't try and associate with them because you're trying to get something from them. Because that kind of comes through in your vibe. People can intuit that even if you're not specifically asking for something. But, oh man, all of this is so great. I want to keep talking to you for 2 more hours. So we're going to have to schedule a follow-up for this for sure, because I've loved every minute of this. So Csaba, thank you so much for coming on the show. Will you tell us a little bit more about where to find you?
Sure. So I have a website called gameofconversions.com, but so just like Game of Thrones, but gameofconversions.com. But I'm reworking my current stuff there. But so I recommend people to just visit my YouTube page, the playlist that I mentioned with the proven sales letter breakdowns. If you're a copywriter, if you're a marketer, if you work in advertising, or you just want to see how persuasion looks like from a psychology point of view, I think you're going to enjoy this. So we're going to leave a link below the podcast episode to the entire playlist. And I think you're going to like it.
Absolutely. I'm going to make sure that they have everything that they could possibly click on, including, I heard you drop that Frozen reference. So this is going to be the Frozen, Not Frozen podcast. Apparently we're going to let it go.
We're going to let it go.
We're going to let it go.
Only for a brief time.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We are totally going to do this again.
Thank you so much, Angie, and all the best to your audience.
So that is it. Another awesome episode of Permission to Kick Ass on the books. If you want to know more about the show, if you want to know more about me, Angie Coley, and the mission I'm on to help entrepreneurs punch fear in the face and do big, bold things, then head on over to permissiontokickass.com. That is all one word together, permissiontokickass.com. Make sure to sign up for my email list so that you know whenever there's a hot, fresh, and ready podcast episode out for you. And also on Mondays, I like to send out a little newsletter called Kick Monday's Ass. I'm sure you're totally surprised by that. So thank you for being here with me today. I'm Angie Coley. Make sure that you share this with a friend that needs to hear this message today. Like it, share it, comment wherever you're listening to this today, and let's go kick some ass.